Hello and welcome to Seeing Jesus with Paul Miller. I'm Liz Voberil and I'm here with Paul and our colleague John Horry, who's our director for West Coast and East Asia. And today we're continuing our conversations about discipleship. Today really drawing in beauty and this question of how is beauty related to discipleship, related to being a human. Paul, how would you describe where we're headed?
Well, we are having fun reflecting on beauty. And it's not something that traditionally the church does a lot of reflections on. And but it very much has to do with really what discipleship is, what Christ formation is about. So if you pull beauty out of Christ formation, it just gets boring. I don't know a better word other than that. It's just boring.
Well, Paul, it seems like it has a lot to do with that telos idea that we've talked about from time to time, right? About where is this going? I always think about telos as like suddenly the ceiling goes from Philly row house basement to Notre Dame, woo, the ceiling is blown up.
Yeah. It is interesting though. It very much has to do with telos, but beauty is it is very elusive. It's best when you're surprised by it. And that doesn't mean that you can, so in our Person of Jesus studies, beauty is a very big part of that. We don't tell people that we're going to the Grand Canyon or Notre Dame, but we gradually unfold this story, and there's a point. Particularly the way we do historical background, where you paint this. Let me just take Widow of Nain, for example, where you describe what a first century funeral is like. So this is from Luke 7, and the wailing women are, the women are up front, and the women are wailing up front, and then you're describing the casket on an open wicker basket, and where Jesus is coming from, and what the wailing women would say. And all of a sudden people will often say there's a point where they kind of shift and they're there, and then that opens the door for them to see Jesus' goodness. Because what's so striking about the Widow of Nain story particularly is how centered Jesus is on the woman. And so you have this contrast between the true, which is this incredible miracle, and the goodness of Jesus, and in the way he's so centered on the woman. And then there's this experience then that people just have, that you can pick it up, you can see it on their faces, that they're seeing the beauty of Jesus. And it's just this little random incident. And some of the incidents, it has to be in the leader, like the leader has to feel it themselves. They have to, it's an experience of worship. I mean, I'm not sure how to parse that.
Part of the elusiveness of it that I'm hearing in your words, Paul, is that even on the receiver, or in the case of the person of Jesus, the student end of it is this process of being led to discovery.
Yes, right.
And rather than being told, rather than being instructed, they're kind of led down a path of discovery. And that's maybe the elusive quality of beauty, is that you can describe it, you can teach it, you can program it, but the person will not fully get it unless they discover it for themselves.
Mm-hmm. And there's something about it that is not a fact. I think often we teach and learn, pass on information in a sort of fact-oriented way. Like, here's the data on where Jesus was. But I think it might be difficult. It's more difficult to see the beauty if you're in fact transmission mode in a lesson.
Right. And what, sorry. I do not know philosophy well, but I do not know enough of this that for Plato, and it's this book that we're actually jumping off this chapter in a book by D.C. Shindler, a Christian philosopher, and the book is called Love and the Postmodern Predicament: Rediscovering the Real in Beauty, Goodness, and Truth. Now that's a mouthful. He must have read the Puritans a lot. It's my kind of idea of a book title, like say it all. Let's get it all out. But that beauty is a property of being. It sounds like a crazy, like it's a property of the thing itself you're looking at. Like it affects you as a person, but it's not like the beauty isn't sort of beauty in the eye of the beholder. Like I'm really looking at something that is beautiful. Like it's a property of that story in The Widow of Nain itself. Now it does take a little mining to see it. So I'm not chasing experiences. It is the experiences of actually there. I'm seeing something real. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it is it did help me personally grow up in a family that we slowed down for beauty. Like taking the highway one up, we must have taken that 10 times up the coast. It's just breathtaking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we would stop. I remember seeing whales, a plane off in the distance, and just cultivating. I remember my dad telling me, we did actually talk about beauty. Now that I think about it, my dad sharing at one point, he had become an atheist pretty quickly as a young man. So he was a teenage atheist, and he would come upon, but he loved the outdoor. Our family just loved, we would camp in the redwoods. So this was when he was probably 18 or 19, and out in the woods, coming across scenes as if they were designed. And it bothered him because he knew there was no designer, but the scene was, and you see this all through in particularly it's everywhere, but it's just in the Douglas fir forest up in Southwest Oregon, where where my dad was from, and the redwoods, where we would camp on the Eel River. It was just breathtaking, I mean, you had to stop.
Paul, one thing that occurs to me as you're saying this is like, you talk about whales appearing or things like that. If you're oriented to beauty and you're planning a family vacation, you still are, you have to be attentive to beauty's appearance versus like, we're pulling over here and we'll see whales now. It's 3:33. That was when the whales were timed to, like it's not choreographed, from our side, at least,
Yeah. You have to be on a hunt for beauty. Developing an eye for beauty means that you're always ready for it to happen. And when it happens, you let it, you let it be, you wait, you
pause, you stop, you
have
make
to
room.
slow down for beauty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just, it's really, and the more your loves deepen, the more beauty you see. Just in the beauty of Kim, I mean, sure, her face would not, it's a little indented in the middle, but cultivating love for Kim, she's beautiful, and I see her beauty. I like to post pictures of her on our family chat. The most recent one was her laughing at the Three Stooges. We have a weekly ritual of watching the Three Stooges together.
I love the Three Stooges.
I know. And, that does take a little bit of patience to develop an eye for the beauty there, but it is its own art.
Yes.
But yeah. So so when my dad would see those forest scenes, it bothered him, and it rightly so, because he saw that beauty was intrinsic to what he was seeing. He knew it was not just an experience for him. That forest scene that maybe no one had ever come across was real. The beauty was real. Like this, it's as real as a truth of that scene. Like, so truth would be, all the description of all the plants that are there and the stream, but if you just focus on truth, and the goodness would just be the way it's all arranged, but the beauty then is what you see then as you come. John?
Well, I think what I'm hearing is, when we think about beauty, maybe naturally our minds wander to the world of art, and then you have the phrase, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And what you're describing is, and when you take it that way, it becomes very subjective. Like, oh, you think this is beautiful, but
Right.
I don't.
Right. Yes.
But what you're talking about is that beauty is in the intrinsic nature of the thing or the place or the created order. And in that, there is an objective truth, an objective reality that can be observed and enjoyed.
Exactly. That is it. I had a conversation a few years ago with a physicist at one of the leading American universities that was really a world renowned for its physics. And it was just a random meeting. We were at a party. There weren't that many people there. And I actually think I was pretty loosened up. So, cause I can get uptight, Joe calls me Don Knotts. We had discussed things in physics. I just went out and first said, like, I'm an evangelical Christian. And, I come from an intellectual tradition within Christianity. And I said, there are a lot of things in physics that we think point to Christianity. And I had mentioned the symmetry between Genesis 1 and Big Bang, and he kind of dismissed that. And I said, well, how do you handle this? That here's what we believe about the universe, that a God who is beautiful creates a creation that reflects his beauty, and then he creates me as a human in his image to enjoy that beauty. I said it's a perfect, coherent whole. And I said, why do you use elegance as a criteria for your theories? And he was stumped. It was almost embarrassing. I wish I had driven it home. But it was just so embarrassing. Because elegance is sort of, is the word that scientists use. Like, it is a very important criteria in science. They always prefer an elegant theory, and elegance theories always turn out to be correct. And it's such a powerful apologetic for Christianity. It's just simply true.
If we take everything we've been talking about and we draw it back to Jesus, then I feel like typically Jesus sometimes gets in our discussions or our discipleship locked in the category of true and good, which he is. And then when we try to draw him into the category of beauty, things get really mushy, or we just don't, it's hard for us to comprehend. But in the way that you're talking about it, that it's not just a matter of, do you think Jesus is beautiful? I don't, or you do. And it's not
Right.
just simply
Right.
in the eye of the beholder.
Right.
It's that he truly is the most beautiful person who's ever lived.
Yeah.
And in doing so, if we take that there's this process of discovery, and as you mentioned, there's an elegance in him that is hard to really behold and appreciate unless we slow down,
right?
Unless we really look, unless we really behold him. And so it's not just beholding him in the truth of who he is, which is very much a part of our knowledge, but also beholding it like what you've described in many ways is we can't know him apart from a sense of a story that he's embedded in. As we watch him in the Gospels and we see beauty in motion, animated, then we're able to discover it.
Yeah. Here's another way of putting that, and I will just expand on that a little bit, is that we have focused on the truth of Jesus. Good. I mean, that's really good. We need to do that. But we talk about his goodness, but it's a kind of a light conversation. It's more the goodness of his atonement for us, or the goodness of his compassion. But it's like when I did that little Widow of Nain story, there are little things where you pick up his goodness in the story, like that he actually goes up to her and says, "Be not weeping." He takes the son back to her. He actually makes her the center of the miracle. So you have the truth of the miracle and his power, and yet his goodness of how focused is he on the woman. It's this other-centered humility. And so then the experience of beauty is seeing those two together that just sort of captures you. And going back to so if you're not aware of how important it is to cultivate an eye for seeing beauty, and even it's a weakness on the goodness side too. It's not just like, it's almost this exclusive emphasis on truth and then sort of applied to me, which is good, as opposed to like seeing the beauty of the goodness itself. And what so struck me, I'm going back to D.C. Shindler's comments in his chapter on beauty. And in general, he's not talking about the church. He's actually talking about the entire modern world. He says that there's because we don't see and feel the reality of God's created order, because we've not cultivated an eye for beauty, that it gives it everything kind of a frivolity. Here's his quote. It's given our culture a general ethos of frivolity. Here's another one. We don't feel the weightiness of givenness of things. There's a kind of a lightness of being. And here's another quote from him. There's a connection between the impoverishment of the notion of beauty and the loss of our sense of reality. I mean, the loss of a sense of reality is just all over. So it's so it's part of the frame that the culture, in other words, it's a subtle way that the culture is actually impacting the church, where it doesn't feel the weight of beauty, the weight of goodness. And so it tries to work up the passions as opposed to letting people experience them.
Well, and I like too how he talks about there's a feeling that weight is an ennobling thing. Really, it's part of knowing like the call to greatness in our life, like that the frivolity of lightness and not having enough weight is also like triviality, right? It's not a fun kind of frivolity, really, in my way of thinking, at least, So there's something really deep that beauty calls us to. So one of a story of beauty in my family, my kids are at a Christian school and they sing the doxology before they eat lunch. And when my oldest daughter was moved to the older group of students, whatever point it's midway through elementary school, maybe third grade. She was moved to the older kid lunch hour. And so so she came home that first day of school and was like, Mom, at lunch, when we were singing the doxology, I don't really know why, but my eyes got all wet, and because the older kids sing in harmony, right? So she felt her own little third grade voice all of a sudden surrounded by this beautiful harmony of these older kids she admired. And I was like, oh, that's your soul being touched by beauty, right? It's so cool. But just to be able to see and say, yeah, what a good gift it is to have a soul that is sensitive to beauty and to make those little marks, right? Of like, there's something in that's very deep and profound.
Yes.
Yeah. And we often relegate beauty because we keep it in other categories and other places as something that's more frivolous.
Nice to have kind of thing.
Nice to have, or it's extra, or it's the sprinkles on the cupcake.
Right.
And I think when you're talking about the depth and the richness of it, then it really grounds it in a place, in a situation that's the reality of my life. I was sharing with both of you earlier before we started the podcast that, my wife Sonia is under a lot of pressure caring for some family members who are in very difficult situations. And I realized yesterday, in the middle of one of the more stressful moments, I think it was in a hospital, I realized I paused at a moment and I was just watching her. And it was very brief, but just watching her interact with the relative, with the medical staff, and under extreme pressure. And I just had to pause and enjoy the beauty in her. And physically, she is a beautiful person. Morally, she's a beautiful person. But there was a beauty intrinsic in her that was the love of Jesus coming out that made me pause. And so whether it's a harmony of the doxology, or if it's a person loving, it kind of creeps up on you.
Yeah. And John, just unpack that. Like, I bet you that, like, what did you see about what she was doing and how she was doing it, that struck you in that moment?
It was that she was fully in the moment rather than avoided it. She was fully present with the person who was ailing, as well as the person who was trying to help with the medication.
Right. So there was some complexity she was doing multi-level loving, like she was loving in several directions at once. Yeah.
She was. And it was grace under fire.
Yes.
So she was doing it with such grace. And then she was fully unaware of what she was doing, which made it even more beautiful.
Yes.
There was not a sense of self-awareness.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I think there was if I describe to her the moment, I bet you she won't even remember it.
I'm sure. And I was hunting for. I was sure that you had mentioned patience under fire, under pressure, and having to do that. And it's just and so what you described there, John, was goodness. Okay. And so your sense of watching her, which was important to pause, was that experience of seeing the true, all the description of what's going on, but it was the goodness when you put them together. And what was so helpful about D.C. Shindler in his comments is that beauty is an experience of the whole being all at once, every part of you, to the combination of the overlap of truth and goodness. And that's exactly what happened to you. And that's what exactly happened to your daughter, Liz, which is just great. And I mean, the layers of even of your, what was it, Abby? Who
was it? Was Abby. Yeah,
Abby. Yeah. Abby, so there was probably the music, but I wouldn't be surprised, even the words too, praise God from whom all blessings flow is a talking about the creator God, that all of creation is gift. And that, so it's the words and are saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And then I just loved the simplicity of my eyes were wet.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
It was beautiful the way she didn't know what would happen to her.
Right. She's just simply relaying and the mystery of it to her.
And a part of this, here's another missing, really weak part of discipleship for the church, is exactly what John was doing and what you were doing. Is the actual seeing that in people. And John, you're seeing the goodness. And Pastor, it's especially bad in mega churches. Lord preserve me. I do want to judge the church, but the program mentality that gets so strong in church, and I mean, it can be all kinds of things that can get it, but to develop an eye for the beauty of the saints in your congregation, enjoying that and seeing that it's all around you.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's everywhere. And I mean, it was just this week when Robert Rowe, our director of student ministries, and Christian Graham, they had just come back from a trip of El Salvador, and the beauty of some of the national leaders that we work with, the beauty of the way they're loving, and they were in awe of their self-forgetfulness. And it was just fun to see them enjoying, it's like they had been to the Swiss Alps and they were coming back and telling us about it, and just the love for Jesus. And what they were seeing is the goodness, like the truth of the poverty of some of these people combined with their goodness. As you see that, it really overcomes to it. Here, let me read a Shindler, a quote from Schiller, another philosopher. Well, no, I'm not sure it was Schiller or D.C. Shindler himself, but beauty appears to the whole of us all at once, and it elevates us. And in my church, we try to do that with smoke machines, but Lord, help me.
Help
me enjoy that. Enjoy the different beauty of that. Okay. But it's all around us,
Well, and Paul, I just think some of it is even, cause it's daunting to say, well, how to give the church as a whole, a palette for beauty and eyes for beauty, but even like saints, I know, like we talk a lot about, just the role of everyday saints.
Yes.
And I think about, I was, running with my good friend, just a couple of weeks ago, and she was talking about how her mom is increasingly needing some more help, and her sister, who's local to the mom, has done so much. And so my friend was saying, I really want to make more time this year to get out and help my mom. And I sat with that a moment, because I think there's a strong cultural narrative of, well, don't feel like you're guilty compared to your sister because your sister's doing more, right? So be careful that you're not doing something out of guilt. But I was so struck. I know my friend's relationship with her mom well. I was like, I think this is beautiful because you love your mom and you love your sister, and that's why you want to make time. I think, so I just paused to see the beauty of that. And I think, that some of that is just like everyday saint life, how we encourage one another and, avoid just dropping into typical cultural scripts that miss the beauty and go straight to something more managerial or therapeutic in all of that. Because there's something beautiful about making time because you love.
Yeah. And the managerial and the therapeutic, I never miss a chance to take a pot shot at both of those. The managerial, just it's not a value, and the therapeutic takes someone who's suffering, where there could be real beauty in that, and says you shouldn't. There should be a system where you should be able to avoid this, and so it kills the beauty. And I'm not saying everybody I'm not saying that everybody does that.
It's the danger.
It's just a great danger. Let me read another Shindler quote here that just I loved. Learning to love beauty opens up a depth dimension in our experience of reality. So it just a genuine sense of beauty will coincide with the sense that the things of this world have their own depth, their own significance. And it's my longing that the church would begin to rediscover this and learn how to search for beauty, slow down for beauty, and not try to sort of create experiences of feeling. And so the process of discipling someone is you as a discipler are at a beauty hunt. Even if it's like here, let me just give an example. This was at my church where I was leading a cohort for a group of leaders who were, maybe the best way to say them was they were prayer resistant. They had just not grown up with, it's just not even part of their world. And, one of the leaders who has become a friend, said, I think on the second meeting we had, I'm only here because I'm paid to be here. And I like, that was an experience of beauty for me. And I actually got excited for it. And what it was real. Like I was encountering reality. You know what I mean? It was not, because I have longed in general for the church and our church, the temptation to pretense in religious things is so powerful. And you add that to the managerial. And so you can't, so that it's not like you don't have permission to be really real. Obviously this takes grace, and I'm not saying that this is an excuse to that, but I was genuinely in my spirit, and I think it kind of surprised him. It was an experience of, oh, great. I was actually excited. I was scraping the bottom of the beauty barrel, but I was in the beauty barrel. And then 3 or 4 weeks later, he started using prayer cards, and he came back in and said, this thing really works, And so I had pressured them to all do it. I didn't care how they felt. Like I was disrupting their feeling world. Like I wasn't hunting for a good feeling for them. I knew what I was bringing was negative feelings into their life. They didn't want to be there at the meeting. They didn't like the project. They thought it was pointless, and I didn't care. I knew that if they started, that I knew Jesus was in them. And I knew if they were faithful, that they would enter that triangle that I described to that physics professor, that a God who is beautiful has created a creation that reflects his beauty and has made me to see it. As I enter into this world that he's made that's filled with beauty, that they can experience beauty too.
Yeah. Wow. Paul, in what you're saying, I hear also that, that quest for feeling experiences can be really misleading and like a faux reality.
Yes.
When there is actually a deep, beautiful, good, true reality to enter, that, woe to us if we take people into the faux world instead of the real one as leaders in the church.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, I think we're probably as far as we can go on that journey today. So, Paul, John, thank you. Thanks, listeners. And we will be back again in a few weeks with another episode.